Well, again, since I'm not a business major, I didn't have any coursework, so taking a couple of marketing classes would definitely have benefited me, but now I'm graduating in December, so it's hard to fit in. But yeah, that in marketing especially, I find a lot of things that my supervisors agree on that is difficult to teach in class. I think a lot of, well, since I haven't taken classes, I don't know if I should speak for the marketing people in here, but I know a lot of the analysis parts, and just for me, maybe the international part of it, it's difficult to, you can learn cultures in classes, but you need to experience it to be able to do a good job on it.
I personally never felt academically unprepared for the job because a lot of it was new, and there are many, many things that you'll run into that you'll say, okay, well, school didn't prepare me for this at all. Like I mentioned earlier, what happens when you have to have someone help you and they're just not in the mood to, or they're grumpy, or they just don't want to because they don't like doing that particular thing. There's a lot of human interactions that you get into to where, not that you need to know how to manipulate someone, but you need to know how to communicate with them and get them on your side and have them understand that, this thing needs to get done and I need your help. And you kind of have to figure out how to do that. And that really comes down to just communication skills, in which I hadn't, had anything besides, COM 114 is like the freshman class that everybody has to take, which is just giving speeches. So there's a lot of things that you run into that kind of tests your wit and your ability to figure out. But there were many times where I would talk to the other co-op students that I was with at work, and I would, say, well, why do we even take this class? I've never even touched it. There will be classes that you'll take that are not necessarily a waste of time, but just that you won't apply to whatever it is in particular that you're doing. And the further along you go into school, if you decide to go, for a graduate, a master's degree, whatever, all of your studies get more and more concentrated, and the other things that you've learned earlier on kind of start to slip away, and you get more specific as you study. So there will be things that you perhaps will forget, or you may run into situations where you haven't studied a particular subject, but you have to figure it out anyway. And as he said, use the resources that you've got. There were many times where I had to hop online and just start Googling things and learning myself because I didn't know how to do it. But again, when it comes down to your supervisor, they've got their job to do, and then their supervisor is gonna get on them if they don't get it done. So if you have a task that you're not sure what to do, instead of just saying, oh, well, I give up, you got to figure it out. Just because you haven't had a class on it before doesn't mean you're not capable of learning, because everyone here absolutely is. It's just taking the initiative of doing just a little bit of reading, and I think most of the times you'll find out that you can figure out things fairly quickly, and that you're a lot smarter than what you think and more capable of what you think. So always give it the effort, and at least try to figure out whatever is going on if you don't have the prior knowledge of. And I think most of the time you'll find that you'll end up doing just as good of a job if you had a class on it, if not.
So I would say there's two major things, at least for me, that I felt like academics never really prepared me for. And they're actually kind of more big picture, like life lesson kinds of things. And the first one is that in school, especially in business, and in engineering, like in finance, accounting, and all that stuff, you have a problem, and everything you need to solve that problem is right there. You've done it before, you know how to do it. Every single piece of the puzzle is there, so you can put it together. And that's just not how it works in the real world all the time. And especially for me, I do a lot of marketing research, and so every time I get a project, I'm looking into something that I've never done before, and half the time I don't even know what it is. And so you have to make these decisions and recommend things based on, you have to find all the data yourself, and even then, when you find all the data you need, you still don't have all of it. You have to estimate the next, 40% of it. And so that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that you'll never actually have everything you need to solve the problem. And so there's a lot of objective guesswork that you actually have to put into it. And it can't just be wild, it has to be guided, and you have to be able to explain yourself. And then the second one that I have is that, what was I going to say? I can't remember, but I would say that the biggest thing that I wish I would have paid attention to more in school is the Excel classes. Nobody really likes a lot of the computer classes, especially if you're in business. You want to be able to talk to people and stuff. But those are definitely very, very important classes. It sounds like pretty much everyone here uses Excel probably almost daily. And so those classes are huge, and I strongly recommend, if you haven't taken them already, to really pay attention in those and try to get as much out of them as you can.
There's some things that the classroom can just never prepare you for. When you're in the plant and a fork truck just rips off a pipeline and the plant floor just gets surrounded by 2 feet of water and robots start acting weird, or a machine just goes to drop a cab carrier and instead of it dropping it on the carrier, it just drops it, or an operator loads up the wrong tire and every tire after that starts going out of order. There's just some things that the classroom can never prepare you for, and you just get that on-the-job experience. I mean, some of those things happen once in a lifetime, but you are there for that experience, and it's in the back of your head after that. You won't forget it. Oh, 1 second.
I remember, sorry, it's going to bother me if I don't say it. Another thing that I learned is that nothing is ever done the first time. So like in school, you write a paper, you turn it in, it's done, you forget about it, and like 3 weeks later you can't even explain what you said because you've already forgotten. But in the real world, there's always 30 drafts before it's the final version, and it does get frustrating. And so I think what I've learned from that is that you just have to be patient and definitely to just try to do everything right the first time. And you hear that all the time, but you don't always follow it. But in the real world, the more effort you put into it, the less revisions you're going to have to do later. So that's important. Sorry.
So like I was saying with those situations, sometimes those situations occur, and like he said, so there's not always a solution for those answers, and especially when people break off and you're by yourself and you've got a supervisor breathing down your neck expecting you to try to come up with an answer to something that you don't even know if it has a solution. It can sometimes be interesting, and that experience can't be replaced by anything that school can teach you. But there are also classes that can contribute to helping you on the job. I know for one, I just started working on a program that helps track bad parts throughout the plant, and I started using C++ coding, which I learned in school. But I learned that I could have done it with like C#, and that I could have created a mobile app out of it, and it could have gone further. But so that's one class that I'm actually looking forward to taking to kind of help me with that. So.
I think there's a little bit of both. There's a lot of things that I have applied that I have learned from school, and then also there's a lot of things that school has never been able to teach me. A couple of the things that I have been able to use that I've learned in school, definitely Excel. I couldn't agree more with that. I use Excel every single day at work. So those classes, just the little things, learning how to maneuver through it, have definitely helped, as well as like intro to finance. As much as I hated all of the stats classes and calculus I've never used. Finance and all of the math classes, as much as I hated them, I've definitely used them as far as analyzing the stock price and variance and return on investment. We do tons of stuff with that. But something that school can never teach you, how to talk to people in regard to sales. That's just life. School's never going to be able to tell me how to read someone or how to effectively communicate information, whether it's through email or phone call or in person, and product knowledge. Obviously, if you're in sales, whatever industry you're working for, there's always going to be something you're selling, and school can never necessarily teach that either.
Yeah, so I guess the two biggest things I've learned from my internships that I don't think would apply in an academic setting is like that business etiquette. Both of my internships were at companies that had very relaxed cultures, but we would go into meetings to, get a client, and we'd all of a sudden have to be super formal. So just being able to read a situation for that business formality and knowing how to address clients and supervisors and other coworkers and things like that is very useful. Also, how to manage setbacks. So with my first internship towards the end, they let me organize and host an event by myself. It was the most nerve-wracking thing I think even to this day that I've ever done. And right before we hosted the event 2 weeks out, I think, and I was going to send out the final invitations, my supervisor was like, just kidding, we're not doing that event. So I had done, no joke, 3 months of work in preparation. It was 250 businesses throughout Elkhart that were supposed to come to this event, and then all of a sudden it wasn't happening. But through that experience, I was also able to learn that, yes, that was a learning experience. I had a whole bunch of new organizational skills, and also things like going to client meetings where you think it's a guaranteed thing, and then 2 weeks later you get an email like, oh, sorry, we're not gonna go with your software. Just being able to manage those setbacks and keep moving forward and learning from those experiences is something that I've learned throughout my internship that I think is really useful in a business setting.